If you've been following the news, you know that Ilhan Omar, the consensus appears to be that she is literally the most controversial person in D.C. right now. And so she is facing attacks from both Democrats and Republicans over comments that she has made. This is, to some extent, a repeat of a conversation that we had in January that we're now having. And tomorrow, supposedly, the House is going to be voting on a resolution to condemn what she has said. And so the resolution, which began circulating to members Monday night, comes after a backlash from top Democrats who accused Omar of anti-Semitism for referring to pro-Israel advocates, quote, allegiance to a foreign country. Now, look, should she have used that particular terminology? No, I don't believe that she should have. It is a trope going back, the idea that in America, people who are Jewish have dual loyalties, that they are loyal to America, but they're also loyal to Israel. It's a way to question what they do. That is true. Is that what she was intending to do? I don't know. I'm inclined to believe not, but I also understand that persuading you of that would be literally impossible, so we're going to move on. In any event, she certainly should not have used that language. However, people are attempting to say that this is obvious anti-Semitism. This is not misspeaking. This is not, she should have worded that differently. This is not, well, this is a learning moment. This is, she is to her core an anti-Semite, and we need the full U.S. government to condemn her. Now, look, if I wanted to, I could go through a long list of other people who very recently have said things that are incredibly questionable that nobody seems to care about. So Jim Jordan with his Tom stare where he replaced the S with a dollar sign saying that he was calling the shots for the Democratic Party. I don't know why that's not in this conversation, but fine. I want to talk about her in particular. So I've already said I believe she should have worded it differently. However, far more importantly is what she was actually trying to talk about. And it is that beyond our relationship with any other country, including our chief economic partners in Europe and all of that, there is a belief that you cannot ever question any individual policy component of the relationship between the U.S. and with Israel. And that if Israel's government, regardless of which party is in power, the individual leadership of that particular party, if they say a thing, then to question it is to question Israel as a country and Judaism as a religion. Now, we don't do this to any other country, but we do it traditionally with Israel. She is attempting to add a little bit of nuance and say, we can start to question some of these things, and inside of the U.S., perhaps, as we question every other lobby that has outsized influence over political outcomes here, we can question AIPAC, for instance. But that is apparently not the case. Now, generally, the attacks against her have said, you cannot say these things in a way that either is or can reasonably be interpreted to be anti-Semitic or to have anti-Semitic sort of connotations. But some go farther than that. So Representative Juan Vargas said, it is disturbing that Representative Omar continues to perpetuate hurtful anti-Semitic stereotypes that misrepresent our Jewish community. Additionally, questioning support for the U.S.-Israel relationship is unacceptable. Well, look, as Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez responds there, I'm curious if Representative Vargas will further explain his stance here that it's unacceptable to even question U.S. foreign policy. That is a big step past. So you're saying that literally any question whatsoever about the bounds or terms or future or anything of the particular relationship between our country and another question is unacceptable and should be condemned by Congress. I don't believe that the vast majority of even the people who are attacking Ilhan Omar would actually say that, but he has, and so perhaps he will finesse that a little bit in the future. I don't understand what he's trying to get at there. My point more largely, though, is Ilhan Omar is receiving scorn for the thing that she said, but that isn't necessarily why it is happening or why it merits congressional condemnation. I believe that it is much more about who she is and what she represents. Now, obviously, for those on the right, the simple fact that a woman wearing a hijab can sit in government at all for 1 second is a campaign that will need to be waged to stop her, get her out of office, and make sure that it never happens again. That is very clear. And when they get that message across, there's very little condemnation. Certainly nothing like what she is facing here. So look at this poster. So I believe it was the West Virginia Republican Party had this poster up. Never forget, you said. A picture of Ilhan Omar, I am the proof you have forgotten. So that... There's nothing there about a comment she's made. There's nothing there about anti-Semitism. It is simply, she is a Muslim woman, so how dare America allow her to sit in office? West Virginia Republican Party, are they being condemned over that? Over just obvious anti-Semitism? No policy implications, no nuance or question of exactly what they meant. We know exactly what they meant, and there's more to it. So Jeff Balaban Trump for President advisor said in regards to her, I'm going to say it, she is filth. She is a filthy, disgusting hater.
Congresswoman Ilhan Omar being accused of making new anti-Semitic remarks. Omar facing Republican backlash, and there's some feuding with members of her own party after she said this.
I want to talk about the political influence in this country that says it is okay for people to push for allegiance to a foreign country.
Woo!
I want to ask, why is it okay for me to talk about the influence of the NRA, of fossil fuel industries, or big pharma, and not talk about a powerful lobbying group that is influencing policy?
In response to those remarks, Democrats could vote tomorrow on a resolution to condemn anti-Semitism. The party, however, is split over whether to include Omar's name in the resolution. So, Dana, let's just go to the heart of the matter, because there are people who are saying she's talking about American policy in the Middle East. Why is that anti-Semitic?
Well, it's because there's a code, right? So she also talks about dual loyalty. That's what she's suggesting, is that people who support is the state of Israel, that if you're Jewish, that you actually, your loyalty is not just to the United States, your loyalty is to Israel. And it's been something that has been considered anti-Semitic and goes way back. And so perhaps she didn't know initially that when she said that was offensive. But the thing is, now she's been told so many times that you have to wonder, like, how do you solve, even like from the musical, how do you solve a problem like Maria? I think that's what the Democrats, like, how do you solve this problem of Congresswoman Omar? Because this is a story that keeps coming back over and over again, to the extent that Mark Mellman, who's a Democratic pollster kind of guy, a consultant, they've started a group, Democrats for Israel, right? Like, to like explain to people why, if you're Jewish and you're a Democrat, you should be supportive. And they had to do like a whole re-education, that's probably the wrong word, but education to people who are younger, somebody like Congresswoman Omar, who is younger. But this is not, she's not an isolated case, right? This is being taught across universities, and in particular the BDS movement, to try to divest from anything that has to do with Jewish people or Israel. That it's growing, and so I think that there does need to be a decision by the Democrats, and I think they would be smart to go ahead and take it on now, because it's clearly not going to get better.
Well, Jesse, in fact, a lot of people argue that this is not about Jewish people, that the biggest supporters of Israel are evangelical Christians and the Republican Party on the right that have made Israel into sort of a litmus test for themselves. What do you think?
Well, I mean, this is universal condemnation to Omar. I mean, Nancy Pelosi, the Anti-Defamation League, the Jewish Policy Center have all said that what she said is offensive and prejudiced. It's not something that the evangelical right is creating here as a wedge issue. She reminds me of, a freshman in college, like 2 weeks into the semester, first term, she's already on probation. She's already had her parents called. This is not good. I mean, she's barely a freshman, and she's already getting spanked by the leadership. It's humiliating to her, and it's got to be humiliating to the Democratic leadership right now. If you combine her with AOC's Green New Deal, and then she stepped in it with this, felony campaign finance scandal, and then the other Tlaib woman, the MRF impeachment rhetoric that came out of her mouth, these three radical musketeers are causing a big problem for the Democratic Party. Yeah. And I guarantee you there's some picture of her with Farrakhan or someone.
Donald Trump will almost certainly be the Republican nominee in the 2020 election. Generally speaking, political parties nominate their own sitting presidents, essentially by default. But if Trump's foray into politics proves anything, it's that he is able to overcome extremely long odds.
Starting with him entering the race on the escalator, him winning a debate, him taking the lead in the polls, him winning a primary, him gaining the nomination. None more shocking, though, to me than last night when we heard the report on the air from Kristen Welker that Secretary Hillary Clinton had called Donald Trump to concede the election.
It's unlikely that Trump will not be the 2020 candidate, but unlikely things tend to happen to Donald Trump.
I could stand in the middle of Fifth Avenue and shoot somebody and I wouldn't lose any voters, okay?
And there actually are 3 ways where you could see another candidate run as the Republican nominee in 2020. Honestly, I really don't think you should expect anyone other than Trump to be the 2020 nominee for the Republicans, but you guys asked for a video like this and my audience is my boss. So in this video, I'll explore 3 ways in which Trump could end up not being the Republican candidate as I work through my list of the 5 Republicans who are most likely to run for president in 2020. But like I've already said about 6 or 7 times, there's only one very likely answer to this question. Okay, so in case I have not made this clear enough, the number 1 most likely Republican candidate for 2020 is Donald Trump. That said, one way you'd see another candidate in 2020 would be if Trump decides to pull a poke and simply not seek a second term. There's nothing that says a president has to run for re-election, and there's plenty of reasons why Trump may opt to call it quits. Being the president, particularly for the Donald, means facing constant scrutiny and criticism in the media.
I read the different papers and then I try and watch as much as I can television. You're seeing more and more with the politics because there's so much on television.
It means constant pressure. It means not being able to legally oversee his company. And it means living in the White House, which compared to his palatial apartment high atop Trump Tower, is kind of a downgrade. It's clear that Trump enjoys his rallies, but it's pretty doubtful he likes anything else about the job. Being president is hard. His former life may be something he misses, and he could easily go back to it.
This is Shaquille O'Neal's shoe.
Oh my God.
Right here, which is a serious
shoe. Is that a real shoe?
That's a real shoe. He took it off after a game and handed it to me.
Oh my God.
I carried it like this.
He just needs to hang a mission accomplished banner on his first term and hang up his MAGA hat. I don't think this will happen, but if it did, you would have an open field for Republicans in 2020. Again, this is extremely unlikely to happen. Trump is already a declared candidate, and he has shown no signs that he's ready to back down. Another reason you might not see him run is if he's impeached, or, as is more likely, he resigns while impeachment proceedings are underway. This is also very unlikely to happen, but it is theoretically possible. It could come about if all of the following things ended up happening. First, Robert Mueller's investigation would have to uncover ironclad evidence against Trump, implicating him for either obstruction of justice or on a conspiracy charge, i.e. Russian collusion. This alone is unlikely because it would require not only that Trump committed a crime, it would also require Mueller's investigation to successfully turn up sufficient evidence to potentially prove this in a court of law. That's not easy, but that's just step 1. Next, both the House and the Senate would have to vote for impeachment. A majority vote in the House is one thing, but a 2/3 majority is also required in the Senate.